everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me today is one of my favorite guests. Fourth time, Ian? Fifth?
I believe so, yes, fourth
believe.
time, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. So, all the way from the UK, Ian Braisby is joining us, and welcome back to the show.
Nice to see you, Jesse. Nice to talk to you again, and great to be back. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we should have a lot of fun. So, but, and as is my habit during this pandemic, how you been doing with everything?
Yeah, things are okay. We went back into a national lockdown this week.
Yeah.
Supposedly for 1 month, but, we will see. And, a lot of talk about what's going to be happening coming up to the holiday season and, what that's going to impact on people's plans and so on. But at the moment, we are in this, not as strict as last time. For the two of us, it doesn't make so much difference because we work at home anyway. So, work is steady still. It's okay. And so I'm really grateful for that, and grateful that we've, got our house and garden that we can still, weather allowing, enjoy to get a bit of fresh air, stretch our legs and so on. And so, you really, I think in these times, it's a case of being grateful for the things you've got and thinking, well, the situation is what it is, but it could be a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that a lot of your work is doing, translation. Though I assume you still haven't gotten to do many tours, so.
No, absolutely not this year.
Yeah, that's. I know that you miss that, not only the income, but just I know that's something you enjoy doing. That you bring a lot of you have a lot of joy getting to share these stories and talk to different people about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I enjoy my translation, but it's a very isolated job. You sit at a computer, you're writing. I guess it's like a writer in many other ways.
Sure.
It is quite a lonely thing, and so the tours give me that contact and that a chance to be with people and to share things with people. Yeah, and so that's a big miss. But I want to be able to do it again, but I want to be able to do it again when it's safe.
Yes.
When nobody has to come on those tours, me or the guests, concerned that it's going to be a danger to them or anything like that. And because there's no joy in that when all's said and done.
Yeah, we're recording this on Sunday, November 8th, so it's the day after all the newspapers and networks, projected that Joe Biden was going to win the presidency here in the U.S. And one of the things that concerned me is there was a lot of spontaneity, a lot of in-the-street joy and kind of celebrations in a lot of big cities, and it was all peaceful. But it appeared from TV most of them were wearing masks. Not a lot of social distancing, but everyone was in masks. Like you would see them, take a drink and immediately put their mask on, and all the newspaper reporters didn't take their mask off. Everyone they talked to didn't take their mask off. So I think people were trying to be as safe as they could, but because of, I think exactly what you were talking about, like this you miss that personal interaction. And because the election had been such a fraught, tough, really year and a half, but, and especially because of the voting, and it took so long to tally the votes for legitimate reasons. I want to make sure everyone can believe that. I think there was just an outpouring of joy yesterday. Yeah. So that was nice to see.
I think so, and I thought the same thing. I was being pretty much glued to the coverage here from the UK for the last few days of your election over there, and I did kind of. I noticed very distinctly that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they did a double fist bump when they were on stage together. There was no hugging, there was no real close contact, and I thought that was a really telling thing, because they must just have wanted to throw their arms around each other and because just as a relief. But I think pretty much people were pretty good, all things considered.
And as a Springsteen fan, him walking up to "We Take Care of Our Own" was a nice little bonus.
Yeah, it was great. I caught up on the footage from that this morning when I was having breakfast.
Yeah.
And you kind of first of all, you just hear kind of a bit of noise and cheering, and then as that died down a little bit, I thought, wait a minute, I know this song.
Yes, it was. So, very nice. And so we are, my wife and I spent all day yesterday in front of the TV, and so I was looking forward to talking to you today as a break. Well, I am glad you and your lovely bride are doing well. So what I've got Ian on is to do a segment of what we've been called Songs of Your Life. And in case you've not heard one of these episodes before, I'll give you a little background. So the sports station I listen to here in Dallas, Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket or 96.7 FM The Ticket, would every week, the morning show would do biggest bands coming to town, and they would discuss all the tours coming into Dallas, and it would give them a chance to talk about the music, and then they would vote on which one was the biggest band. And it was just, a fun way to kill a segment and also discuss, different musical taste. Well, starting in March, tours stopped, and they couldn't do that segment anymore, so they came up with Bands of Your Life, which is 11 questions that you could answer about different musicians or bands in your life, but the premise was you couldn't use a band more than once. So example, band that made you fall in love with music and band you must see live. You could not use Bruce Springsteen for either one. For one or the other. And that was interesting, and my buddies over at How Many, one of the podcasts I did, we all did a round of answering those questions. But Chris Jackson said, you should make this more for set listing Bruce. You should do this more Bruce-wise. What are you going to do, Dad? And so I came up with the same 11 questions, but the premise is you can only pick one Bruce Springsteen song to answer each question. So we've had a few people on, and Ian was nice enough to email me saying, hey, are you still wanting guests to do this? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, okay, I think I have my songs ready. So you want to give us a little bit, not give the answers yet, but talk about your premise or your process of picking the songs. Did you immediately know the answers to some, or did you have to think about this a little bit?
I did have to think about it. There were one or two categories where a particular song leapt straight into my mind as kind of, this is the one I've just got to have in that category. But then you get the problem of which category do you put your absolute top song in? Do you put it in the listen to over and over, the thing that you love to see live, the song that you love, then you get into all of that. And what I really did, each time I listened to one of these episodes, I kind of made a couple of notes as from what was said. Maybe somebody would mention a song or you would mention a song that would suddenly come into my consciousness again for a particular topic. So I gradually narrowed it down. I think I made my last change this morning.
Okay, nothing like that, yes.
I had one category that even until then I still had two songs that were really in the running. But so I got to it a little bit, circling around it until I gradually honed in on the final choices. But it's been an enjoyable thing to do, but a difficult thing to do.
I understand. Okay. Well, we're going to get the two negative questions out of the way first. Song you hate. And I caveat this is, and it may be a song you just don't understand as much, right? You know, some people say, oh, I don't want to hate anything that Bruce does, but so either one of those.
No, I will come straight out and say that I hate it. I did check with you first whether I could pick a cover version.
Yes, you did.
I
I
did
thought
have
that
one
was
of the
nice.
Stone songs as a standby just in case. But the song I've chosen is Shout.
Okay.
And Shout, as most people will probably know, the last couple of tours, certainly that I've seen Bruce on, he's used Shout quite a lot as the final or second to last song of the encore. And yes, it's kind of intended to be a celebration, everybody leaping around. The only trouble is I hate Shout. I have always hated Shout. I don't like Lulu, and I didn't like the song when it was on the radio when I was a kid. It was re-released in the UK and in the charts again when I was in my teens, and I still hated it. And so to hear Bruce playing it was, yeah, of course, I prefer the E Street Band's version to Lulu's version. But you go to a Bruce show and it's fantastic. You have 3 hours plus of fantastic music. And for me, it's that little bit of a shame that the last thing you hear before they send you off back into the world after the show is a song that I hate. And so that's why I really wanted to pick it. It doesn't spoil the show. It doesn't tarnish the show. But I just wish that a song I liked a little more would be the last notes of music that I hear.
What I love this answer. I think I've shared this before. In fact, after Chris's first show, we were driving home from Oklahoma City and we recorded our thoughts, in the car. And he said, "What's the deal with Shout? Is it a junior high dance? I mean, what's going on?"
Yeah.
I do wish that, and I think our good friend, our mutual friend Terry Smith and I talked about that, if we had our way, we would rotate him doing different, you know, if he wants to end a song with a cover, a rock and roll classic, I wish he would, kind of throw it out, right? Do some different versions. So yeah, I totally understand with you. That's excellent way to start. All right, song that you think is overrated.
Okay, this is my controversial one because I've chosen 10th Avenue Freeze Out for this category.
Okay,
So,
okay, explain.
yeah. Now, I do want to put a caveat on that. Obviously, I get the symbolism that this song has taken on in recent years, particularly in terms of being used in terms of a memorial about the band's links with one another, particularly since the loss of Danny and Clarence. So I don't want to take away from that at all. That I don't have any problem with that. What I'm thinking about here is purely just as a song, especially the version of it that was on Born to Run originally, not really the live version. And the reason I say it's overrated, I think a lot of people do love the song. I like the song. But for me, when I first heard Born to Run when I was a teenager, it was the one song that didn't really seem to fit in terms of the theme and the kinds of emotions that I got from those songs. So that was why. So it never really established itself as a particularly top song for me. And that's why I've chosen it for this category, really.
So I don't think that's necessary controversy at all. Of course, I'm the guy who picked Jungerland, so I know that you know, um, because you are giving the caveat that you understand the live version is a different beast than the studio version. You also understand how, as it has taken on a new meaning, with them showing the montage of Clarence and Danny's, uh, pictures and stuff. So, you get that. But good. Interesting choice. Interesting choice. All right. Let's flip it. Song that you think is underappreciated.
This was a very difficult one. I have chosen as my final choice Tunnel of Love. Actually, there were 2 or 3 songs from the Tunnel of Love album that I considered, but I did really think that, especially, say, Tougher Than the Rest, I think is really heavily appreciated by people and they wish they got to hear it more live.
Yes, I agree.
Tunnel of Love, I think, is an excellent song. I think it's got a great theme to it. It's a very interesting metaphor that he's using for talking about relationships. I like the sound of the song. I love the acoustic guitar, the fast strumming, and I love Neil's solo that he put on there, which he actually wrote something about in the notes for his career box retrospective that he wrote about the guitar he played that song on. And so for me, it's a really underappreciated song, and it's a song that could also have come up in the would love to see live category, because I never have. And so, yeah, that's why I went for it for this one.
I do think, and it is easy for us, mega fans to talk about songs that we wish were in the rotation more, right? Like I love hearing Badlands live, right? I'm not going to complain, but you go, is there, another song that you wish he would have thrown in sometimes? And once again, he has so many great songs that it is hard to pick that one. So yeah, Tunnel Love, great song. That I've said if I have to push, Tunnel of Love is going to be in the discussion of my favorite album. So great choice. All right, song that you love.
So my song that I love, I've chosen No Surrender. This is a hard category again, because there's a lot of Bruce songs that I love, needless to say. But I particularly like No Surrender because of the song itself. I think the version on the record is really good. It doesn't have quite that same very cheesy 80s production that Some Are Born in the USA has. I love that sort of garage rock, that kind of guitar sound that it has. Of course, the classic line for any music lover, learning more from a 3-minute record than we ever learned in school, is in that song. And the message of the song about friendship, about youth, about nostalgia is something I love. And the other reason I love this song is because it's 2 songs in one, because there's the acoustic version of it that appears on the live collection 75-85 is absolutely beautiful. I think that song is one of the most beautiful things that I know in terms of a reinvention of a song, and just a beautiful acoustic record. And I know we mentioned Terry before, but I know Terry has spoken in various podcasts he's done about his funeral playlist.
Yes.
And do you get to choose the songs for your own funeral? And that, for me, that acoustic version of No Surrender would be a big player in that discussion if I was able to do that.
Yeah. One of the things I love No Surrender about, for all the reasons you mentioned are great, but also there is many of us who have struggled with medical issues. With myself, it was cancer. With others, other medical conditions. The whole anthem of no retreat, no surrender has taken on another meaning, not just about friendship and this idea of being strong and fighting against what is often an unfair battle. So absolutely, it is a song that could have made my I love, and it is on my, when you're talking favorite songs, it's on my list. So great choice. All right, song that you can listen to over and over again. All of them is what many people said. Yes,
is the only answer. But my choice for this category is Wrecking Ball, which it's a song I have quite a strong emotional connection to. I love the actual song, generally the sound of it, and the way it progresses through. I love it live, and I love the record. Obviously, ostensibly, it's about the demolition of the Giants Stadium. And for me, whenever I listen to the song, I think about my hockey team's old historic arena where they used to play, which was demolished to build a new one. And so when I listen to Wrecking Ball, I think not about the giant stadium where he's talking about, but I'm thinking about that stadium. So it has that connection. I name-checked the song in a blog post that I wrote about the hockey team's arena, actually. I slipped in a little nod to the song in there. But the other reason I can listen to it over and over is because you get a lot with it. So it's about a sports stadium being demolished, but it's not about that at all. It's about your resilience, I guess, to tough times, the way that you stand on your own 2 feet and you face challenges. I think very much what you were saying about no surrender in terms of medical problems and so on. I think Wrecking Ball has very much a similar kind of thing about it. It's that idea of, come on, give me your best shot. Let's see what you got. I'm not going to be knocked down by this. For me, I know you know, Jesse, and one or two of our other friends will know, I've been going through a process of giving up alcohol this year, 4 months sober now as of last week. And this is one of the first songs that I put on the playlist I made to as part of that kind of process. So it has that for me as well. I think Bruce's songwriting that shows up in this song is the genius of Bruce's songwriting is that he goes from the big thing to the little thing, or vice versa within the same song. And in this one, he goes from that, it's about a sports stadium, it's about nostalgia, but then it goes into, this is what it's about on a personal level. And I think Bruce's best songs all do a little bit of that.
I totally agree with you. A couple things. One, right, hard times come, but bring on that wrecking ball. The idea, go ahead, give us your best shot. Let's see what you got. It is just the idea of, to mix our metaphors, right? Elton John's I'm Still Standing, right? Like, fine, bring on your wrecking ball. I'm still here. What? That's the best you've got? Come on, give it more. The other thing is, so several years ago, the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones built a beautiful new stadium. We call it the Death Star. We call it Jerry World, but it is a beautiful facility. But Texas Stadium, which had been in Irving, Texas, which is just right outside Dallas, had been the home for the Cowboys for years, and it was the iconic stadium that had a hole in the roof so God could watch his team play. It was, it truly had aged poorly. Chris and I had gone to games there, and I also think that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys administration, when they were trying to get the vote passed for a new stadium, quit investing in the old stadium to kind of like, hey, look at this shiny new tool we can get versus this piece of garbage. But they broadcast live, Ian, the implosion of Texas Stadium.
Wow.
And I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I was like, play Wrecking Ball, play Wrecking Ball, play Wrecking Ball, play Wrecking Ball. I mean, I was just screaming at the TV to the television stations, like, this is the song you should be playing when you're doing this. It doesn't matter. It's about the Giants, and of course they didn't. And if I was a more creative person, I would take that footage probably on the internet and put it to Wrecking Ball, and send it out. But yeah, great choice. Absolutely great choice. All right, next song that made me fall in love with Bruce.
Well, this is the category I've chosen for Born to Run. Born to Run was going to be in there, and it's just which category. When we did the best fifth songs a little while ago for your anniversary episode run, I did say that I would always pick Born to Run in any category it qualified for.
Yes.
The trouble in this one is it qualified for most of them.
Yes, it did. Yes.
This is the one I put it in. And I think it's not an overstatement to say that, because I think as a early teenager, I knew the Born in the USA songs because they were hit singles. I think I got a copy of the Born in the USA album on a cassette somewhere. But it was when the live version of Born to Run came out, in '86, I think, that was a single. And that was just, I knew the song vaguely, but that was just the moment that I thought, wow, this is something incredible. And that was what made me tune in to the concert from Stockholm on the Tunnel of Love tour that really I often say was my big moment for getting me into Bruce. But it was the fact that I'd already heard this live version of Born to Run that made me do that. And we taped the concert, and at the end of the concert, there was just a little bit of space left on the tape, and I taped onto it the version of Born to Run because that went with it so well.
Excellent choice. I don't think anyone can argue, and absolutely. So, song that changed your life?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, again, there's a lot of them in different ways. But I've gone for The Rising in this category, and it's for quite a specific reason because it didn't change my life the first time I heard it. It didn't change my life probably the first 100 times I heard it. But I'd been a fan of Bruce since I was about 14, 15 years old in the 80s, but I'd never seen him play live. But on the 14th of October 2002, at the Bercy Omnisports Arena in Paris, that was where I went to my first Bruce and the E Street Band show, and the first song they played was The Rising. So it was the first song that Bruce that I ever saw him play live. And, you know, that was when I went just from being, oh no, I wasn't just a fan, I was quite a committed fan. I knew everything there was to know about Bruce. But then, you know, you have a whole other experience when you've seen Bruce live.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. And starting to go to shows, that opened my eyes up to the fact that, wow, there's a whole load of other people out there who feel exactly the same way. And that's what gets you into this idea of a community that's led to some great friendships and some great times over the years since. So that's why I say it changed my life, because it was the first song I saw live.
I love that answer. And, you know, one of the things that I love all this, you know, I've now, you're about the sixth or seventh person that's done this. And one of the reasons I like having this list, and I don't feel it becomes redundant, is everyone interprets the questions differently. And this is truly one of those, you know, because you could make the argument, well, song that made me fall in love with Bruce and song that changed my life, those are almost the same thing. But because of the choices people make, it usually is not the same thing. So very well, and I do agree. If I could take a side note, Ian, one of the unexpected blessings that I've had doing this podcast, right, is the amount of friends I have now made over the world, right?
Yeah.
And the connections we have, right? Like there are now people, because they've been on the podcast, have connected with each other, and you know, and then Terry has done his own job with Music Talks, bringing us together in this community, you know, and so I was talking yesterday as we're sitting in the living room, and I've got my phone on me, and Linda's like, so what are you seeing on Twitter? And I'm like, all my UK, and I said mostly UK, but all my European friends just sending me messages about how happy they are for me, right? And for us as a nation. And as much as I love doing my Doctor Who podcast and all my other podcasts, as Ken Rosen talked about in the Backstreets article, right, it's connections. And this podcast has helped connections. So, and you're right, that live, when you go to that live show and you go, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. There are hundreds, if not thousands, possibly millions of fans around the world that all are as passionate about this as I am. So, great choice. I love that story. All right, song that surprised you.
I wasn't quite sure what kind of song to pick for this one, because songs surprise you in different ways. But the way I interpreted it was kind of a song that you'd heard loads of times, but then suddenly, for some reason, out of nowhere, it really strikes a chord with you. And from then on, it's one of your songs. And that's why I've chosen Long Walk Home. And the way it surprised me or snuck up on me to some extent, I think when Magic first came out, I liked it. Not as much as I like it now. I absolutely love the album now. But
sure.
I thought it was a very consistent, very strong set of songs. And, you know, there were some I liked better than others, but there were none that I really thought were really, really up there. But then I went to a few shows on the Magic tours, the winter and the summer one. And in the summer tours, we went to Cardiff in June of 2008. And it was a beautiful summer's day. It's a beautiful stadium. It was a fantastic show. I think probably in terms of the songs that were sung and just the quality of the performance, it's possibly the best Bruce show I've seen. But there was a particular set of songs they played. They played Devil's Arcade, Into the Rising, Into Last to Die, Into Long Walk Home.
Wow.
That's set of 4 songs just back to back, no
that's
words
a solid
between.
that's a solid 4 of a kind in poker terms, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fantastic guitar solos, three different guitarists playing solos on these songs, but it was the last one, The Long Walk Home, that just absolutely blew me away. And from then on, it just became one of my favorites, not just on that album. Now I'd say it's certainly in my top 3 of the post-millennial era of the songs it's done. And of course, today with the events of the last few days in the US, it's a particularly apposite time to talk about the song, I guess, as well.
Oh, I love that idea. If I had answered the song, if I'd answered the question that way, Independence Day would be the one that I would use that thought, is because I've shared many times on the podcast that I didn't dislike Independence Day. It was just another song, right? But when I saw it live on the Rising tour, and the idea that Bruce, as someone in his late 60s at that point, singing a song that he wrote when he was young, discussing, like, he is the age now that his father was, or probably older, Independence Day became a totally different thing for me. And so I think that's a great way to pick that. Absolutely. All right. Guilty pleasure.
Okay, guilty pleasure. Are we allowed to be guilty about liking any of Bruce's music? I don't know. Well, I thought, what would most people say is the album that they wouldn't expect you to pick a song from? And I thought that'd probably be Human Touch.
Okay.
And that's what I've done. I've gone for Real World.
Nice. Okay.
Which is a song that I love. It was always my favorite song off that album. Might not have much competition in that particular category.
Yes, I get it.
But I think when people talk about those 2 early 90s albums, they were the first 2 Bruce albums that I actually purchased on the release day. I was at the record store before they opened, banging on the door to get them. And I was going on a long coach journey. I bought them on cassette, and I just listened to them alternately the whole coach journey that I was traveling on. Most people, I would agree with that Lucky Town is the better of the 2, the better songs and much more coherent. But I think there are 2 or 3 songs of Human Touch that if you threw them on there, it would make that even stronger. And Real World is one of them. It's more like what I call a proper Bruce song, the kind of song that I would love to hear the E Street Band play. And I think some of the same themes it deals with are things that he goes back to when he went back into the studio to do Better Days. This line about built a roadside carnival out of hurt and self-pity, and it's all about moving forward and trying to get away from what you might have felt in the past. And there's also a great acoustic version of it. from the Christic Institute shows that he did. So, yeah, I'm not guilty about liking it.
No, you shouldn't be. That's awesome. All right. One of the questions I often ask in the podcast is songs that you're chasing, songs that you wish you had seen live that you hadn't. So, what's the song that you wish you had seen live?
Roulette is the song I've chosen here. Out of what I would say are really some of my favorite Bruce songs, Roulette is the one that I haven't seen live.
Okay.
As soon as I started listening to Bruce from hearing the first live recording on the radio, this was a song that really stood out, and I couldn't believe it wasn't on any of the albums. So I always wanted to see it, but I thought, well, the chances are I won't. But then he started from time to time to actually play it live.
Yes.
And of course, that only made me want to see it more, because I knew there was actually a chance that he could. He's played it here in the UK. He opened a show with it, one of the ones that's available on the downloads, the official downloads. I think we saw either the show before it or the show after it. But
yes, absolutely.
We didn't see the one open.
Which makes it even more frustrating, right? Like you're this close.
Yeah. So I would love to see it. And it's a song I've been listening to a lot in the last couple of years. I think it's not about the kind of political situation we're in now, but I think with all the things we've had, whether that's with the political situation in your country, the political situation in my country, and recently with the pandemic, this feeling of frustration and powerlessness, that you feel like there are people maneuvering and playing games with you and your family's health and well-being and livelihood, that you just don't know what you can do about it. And so it's a song that I think is really relevant as well for the current times.
Absolutely great choice. I think, really well said. And yes, I do think it's very fitting with what's going on, kind of in the world today, right? That we feel like we're in a game we can't win sometimes. Yeah. All right. The last, and this one was, once again, I think the answer could be all of them. Great song to see live.
Well, my choice for this one, Jesse, is Jungle Land.
All right, nice.
So I will say straight out, after Born to Run, it's my second favourite Bruce song, per se. And I think, like Born to Run itself, it kind of shows off a little bit of the best of what rock music is, and particularly what the band can do. And I think when they play it live, you really see the virtuosity of the different instrumentalists. Yes, it's famous for the fantastic sax solo that Clarence or Jake play, but there's a fantastic guitar solo in it. There's the piano. It's got so many changes of mood in the drumming and the organ and everything. So for that, and I just think when you have the song come up, when the first notes start, you get this hush comes over the stadium, and the crowd sings along. But then when you get to that first Tonight in Jungle Land, and then the band just explodes. And for me, that moment is one of my top moments in a live show. So that's all of those reasons, but particularly that last one is why I've chosen it.
I think that is absolutely brilliant and a great choice. It is, I love the idea, right, that it's showcasing everything, and that there also is a little specialness that for a while after Clarence's passing, this was not a song they played very often.
No.
Right? It was almost like sacred ground. You can't, similar, and as we mix our metaphors, right? You don't give a great player's number to a different player, right? Like you can't, like, the odds are there will never be a Dallas Cowboy that wears number 12, right? That's Roger Staubach's number. You're never going to have someone else wear 12, and so it is almost like, there's no way that we can play it. And then when they did, right, I remember the excitement and the anticipation of hearing that. And so I think a absolutely amazing choice. Well done, sir.
Yeah, and I love it, and I agree. I think the fact that Jake plays it in the sound, it's quite similar,
Yeah.
but his persona is so different to Clarence,
Yes.
and so it just has a totally different vibe to it in the way it comes across now as well. So,
And then,
yeah.
the more we see, the more I am impressed. Not only is Jake an absolutely wonderful ambassador for the band and is so good to fans and in live shows, when he's touring solo, but also, talk about some big shoes to fill. Um, you know, um, Charlie has done a good job, for taking on Danny, but
Yeah.
it's not quite that iconic, right? That you know, there is only one big man, and I think it helps that he is related to Clarence, and I
Yes.
also think that he has this respect, and he kind of the persona of always loving his uncle and sharing that. So yeah, absolutely wonderful choices. So great job, my friend. I think you hit it out of the park.
Oh,
So good
thank you.
job, great job. All right, before I gotta let you go, any thoughts you want to share about Letter to You, the album or the film or both?
The film I haven't watched yet.
Okay.
The album I like it a lot. I think there's a little bit of a mixture for me. There are some songs I really like, some songs that I think are not so strong. I think there's a lot of songs on there that will sound great live if we ever get to hear them. Fingers crossed that we do. And for me, I think that I love the three older songs, um, which I've heard the old demo versions, solo versions from the early 70s. So I kind of, you get a little bit of familiarity, but I like the style that they're done in. I enjoyed it when there were the songs on chapter and verse that were the same kind of era, the same sort of style of song. But I think out of the new songs, I think Burning Train is an excellent song, and Last Man Standing I really love.
So
And
when I'm
yeah,
listening to this, even though and you haven't seen the film, but the film ends with Burning Train. They start playing that, and that's the song that's played over the credits. I picture that as opening the tour. I just can see the band walking out and them starting that, and I just can see the stadium or the arena or the venue going crazy. I just see that as a great show opener.
yeah.
Um,
When I listened to the album the first time, is it the third song? I think is it the third? It's quite early in
yeah,
the playing list order, and it kicked off, and the first song is quite similar to the Western Stars kind of
yeah,
material, and then comes Letter to You, which had been a single, so we'd
yeah.
heard it a few times, but it was when Burning Train comes on, and then I just felt my smile come, and I thought, this is what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, I had not heard the older songs at all, so they're all new to me, and um, I I was surprised how much I loved If I Was a Priest.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I found
it
out for me.
is just love, and then Power of Prayer for some reason just really clicks with me. It's just good. So, well, that is awesome. I think as many Bruce albums, right? As you mentioned, you liked Magic, but then as you started growing and listening to it, it raises up. I think this will be the same
Yeah,
thing.
I
I,
think so. I think so.
yeah, I think it's very nice. Oh, well, Ian, this was a blast. Thank you
Yeah,
much,
it's
my
been
friend.
great.
If someone wants to reach you, how can they?
They can reach me on Twitter. It's Ian Braisby. That's IANBRAISBY on Twitter. And anything else I do will be linked or tagged from there. So that's the best place.
Very nice. Well, my friend, you please stay safe.
And
Um,
you too, Jesse, and you and your family as well.
yeah, enjoy your garden, enjoy some good music, and
Definitely.
continued success on your journey. I know it is a tough one. One day at a time is not a cliche, it is just the reality.
Yep.
So I'm proud of you. And
Thank you.
as always, if you need to talk or visit, or you come with another idea, just reach out and we'll schedule this again. Okay?
Okay, great, Jesse. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much as always.
All
Take
right.
care.
Yes, listeners, you take care. Remember to social distance, wash your hands, wear an F mask, be good to each other because heaven knows we need it, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.